them is not free. And 15,000 nurses in New York City realize that. And they realize right now that they are on strike and they're not getting paid while they're on strike. But this is the price to pay to get what they want, right? Right now, New York City is having the largest nurses strike. This is a huge, big deal. We're going to go ahead and bring it in here. I want you to hear what the nurses have to say.
This morning, 15,000 New York City nurses hitting the picket line in what is considered the largest nurses strike in the city's history.
Nurses, united, will never be defeated.
Union members walking out of several private hospitals across the city at 6 this morning.
We need fair contracts now because I know that people are going to suffer, and that is not what we want.
In response, hospitals like Mount Sinai say they have hired more than 1,000 agency nurses to help combat disruptions to care.
That's also known as the people who are considered scrubs, the people who break the picket line. That's really what they're known as.
The important, I think, piece to be mindful of is that we have spent lots and lots of time bringing in additional support to make sure that the responsible care of patients remains a priority.
Nurses say they are
scabs, not scrubs. I'm so sorry, guys. I'm thinking about the show. You guys know the show Scrubs? I'm thinking about the show.
They're seeking better staffing ratios, protection of benefits, pay increases, and workplace security guarantees, with the union pointing to recent shootings at city hospitals.
Right now, working as a nurse in a hospital, you are danger everywhere.
On Friday, the governor of New York, Kathy Hochul, declaring a state of emergency. This morning, saying she's happy 11 hospital systems have reached agreements, and she's sending New York Department of Health staff to the 3 striking hospital systems to monitor and ensure patient safety. All of this comes as flu numbers across the country are reaching record levels. 41 states, including New York, are seeing high or very high flu activity.
The healthcare system will be there to make sure that people's needs are met.
So one thing that I want to add here, I don't know if any of you are nurses or if you know someone who is a nurse. I have nurses in my family and I have some of my colleagues are nurses. And here's what has been said to me. When I first heard that you get to work, well, all of them, they get to work like 3 days on, 4 days off, or sometimes 4 days on, 3 days off, but they're longer shifts. I was like, oh, wow, you get 3 days off? Whoa, you get 4 days off. But then they proceed to explain to me that nursing is very stressful. And this is something I never pay attention to. Like when I go to the doctor, I'm not, paying attention to what, the nurses are doing or anything like that. And I'm not a nurse. But my colleagues have told me that nursing is a stressful job. Some of these nurses have been overworked, sometimes not getting overtime pay from what they have said to me. During the pandemic, it was very brutal for a lot of nurses because they were working longer hours and, of course, putting themselves at risk as well. Just think about what was going on at that time. It was crazy in the country. And upon listening to their stories, I have realized that nursing is not what I thought it was. And I just look at it as though, okay, someone's a nurse. They may come in and, I don't know, take your blood pressure or something like that. Like, I just didn't realize all the other things that nurses have to do, especially the ones that work at a hospital and not like a family practice or something like that. So I think that sometimes these healthcare workers are not given the salary that they should get. They're not given the benefits that they should get. To give you an example here, one of the hospitals in Boston, I believe it's Brigham and Women's, if I remember correctly, they don't have a psych ward. So if there isn't a psych ward in the hospital, but you have patients that come in that have mental health issues, there isn't someone there that is trained to deal with that. So they have to take that on as well. So that's something to think about. There is also nurses that work third shift, like everybody doesn't have a 9 to 5. And just think about the type of things that they see late at night. And one of the things a friend of mine told me, she said, all the crazy stuff happens late at night. whether it's when people are coming from the bars or the clubs, when we're sleeping. She said that's when all the crazy things happen, like late at night in the hospital. So from what I understand, nursing is a very stressful job.
For the millions of people here in New York City, patient care should not be affected. So the hospitals say people should not delay or avoid getting help in a medical emergency, George.
Okay, Rhiannon, thanks.
Yeah, and we got another video here I want to show you as well, so you can hear from more of them. Sly says nurses in NYC make $120,000 a year. That's not what you think it is in New York City. And I know people who are nurses in New York City that don't make $120,000 a year. So I think it all depends, right? So that's something to think about. Let's go to the next clip here. Here was another one for local news here. Again, 15,000 nurses on strike in New York City.
Yeah, they've been out here since 6 o'clock this morning, actually just a few minutes before 6 a.m. They joined the picket lines, and you can see some of the signs behind me. You can see it says, "Stop silencing nurses, stop threatening nurses, we want equal pay." They are calling for what was promised to them in 2023 to stay. They joined the picket lines back then. That lasted for 4 days. They went to the negotiating table and got what they wanted. And now they say their bosses here at the hospital are trying to roll those promises back. And they say that's not fair. Right now, the nurses are demanding an increased nurses' pay, safe staffing levels to improve the nurse-to-patient ratio, their full health care benefits and pension, which the nurses union says management has threatened to cut. Nurses also...
Pause this right here. Everyone pay attention to the demands. What's important here is that they are asking for what they were promised back in 2023. So these aren't new demands. It's like, so it's now 2026 and these demands have not been met. Increase in pay, definitely. Safe staffing levels. Again, that nurse to patient ratio is obviously a problem. Again, like talking to people who are nurses at the hospitals, you know, how many patients is one nurse seeing in like during like their shift? What that means for you as a patient is that you don't get the quality time that you need with the nurse, because they have to cut your time in order to treat everybody else. So it impacts the patient too. This is not just about the nurses saying we want more money. They're asking for what they were promised, which hasn't been given to them. And then also they're asking for this to make a safer environment for the patients. This next one here, the third one, is disappointing and honestly embarrassing in this country. Full health benefits and a pension. You have nurses working at a hospital that don't get full health benefits. You know, there was a movie called Head of State with Chris Rock. If you haven't seen it, watch it. It's funny. It was Chris Rock and he was running for president. And he was running against this other guy who said, "God bless America and no place else." I forget that character's name, but the movie's hilarious. One of the things that Chris Rock said in the movie when he was campaigning is he said, "How many of you work in a hospital that you can't afford to get sick in?" And then you stop and think. And then you see this. They don't even have full health benefits. Pension. I don't know anybody really getting a pension nowadays. I mean, like, I didn't even think this was a thing for like my generation. I heard my parents talk about pensions. I've heard my grandparents talk about pensions, but I don't know, I've never been offered a pension. But the full health benefits is wild, right? Considering they work in a hospital.
Want protections from workplace violence, as they say there have been a number of incidents this year. 15,000 nurses walking off the job this morning straight to the picket lines at hospitals across Manhattan and the Bronx. That includes Mount Sinai, Montefiore, and New York Presbyterian. Hospitals say that they have millions preparing for this strike, which includes hiring replacement nurses. And get this, these nurses on the line tell me that they are the ones who've trained their replacements. Listen.
Why?
Oh, who wants to strike? We're not getting paid. We don't get health care. People have families. People have to take care of their bills. Life still goes on. But we're out here to say we need to be taken care of and you need to do better, Mount Sinai.
How long are you willing to be out here?
As long as it takes.
That's the thing I think that people forget, right? Like when employees are on strike, they're not getting paid. Like they're not getting paid. So it's just like, and people ask, well, how do they do this? That's where mutual aid comes in. When people organize these types of strikes, listen, there has to be mutual aid in place so that people can still pay their rent, They can still pay for like their groceries, what other bills that they have throughout the month. You have to have a mutual aid system that is set up. So this is why I tell everybody all these things we want to do, like all these different movements we talk about, etc. There has to be mutual aid set up for these things to take place, because you are going to miss time from work. Same thing with a general strike. You cannot have a general strike without mutual aid. So that is especially crucial.
We had a good contract the last 2023, and now they want to roll back and take everything back, which isn't fair.
We're doing this for them. At the end of the day, it's really hard for us all to like walk out on them, but that's not what this is. This is for our patients and to be able to get us to care for them in a safer way.
Yeah.
And Mount Sinai releasing this statement this morning as soon as their nurses started to strike, saying, unfortunately, the NYSNA decided to move forward with its strike while refusing to move on from its extreme economic demands, which we cannot agree to. But we are ready with 1,400 qualified and specialized nurses and prepared to continue to provide safe patient care for as long as the strike lasts.
So these are scabs that are coming in to take those jobs. But one thing I want to add here, this hospital, Mount Sinai, is referring to the demands as extreme economic demands. But this is what you promised. You promised this to them in 2023, and it's now 2026, and you haven't fulfilled that promise. So how is it extreme economic demands? Do you realize what year we're living in? What country we live in? What the economy is like right now? And if anyone's watching, if you've lived in New York City, holla at me, because I lived in New York. New York is expensive. It was expensive back then. It's expensive now. So that was over, 10 years ago when I lived in New York? As long as I can remember, New York City has always been expensive. And people need to be paid what they're worth. And like I said, if you didn't plan on giving them those demands, then you shouldn't have agreed to it. Now they have 1,400 people coming in. There's 15,000 nurses on strike. 15,000, not 1,400. Okay? So we shouldn't have this problem in the United States of America. That's the point I want to get across. We shouldn't have nurses that have more patients than they can handle. I said this when I was in higher education. Same thing with the teachers. We should not have teachers that have more students than they can handle. This country has a lot of money, but it's being used in all the wrong ways. It's being used to have all these wars abroad instead of taking care of people right here. So I support the nurses. I rock with the nurses. I support them. Some of the doctors have also joined along with the nurses, supporting them in the strike. So people need to be paid. These hospitals have to stop being cheap.
Back out here live in the next hour, we are expecting the lieutenant governor to be joining the strike line here outside. The nurses union says this is the largest strike in New York City's nursing history. The governor says she's urging both sides to get back to the table here, but since that's not happening, she is declaring a state of emergency and asking the Department of Health to step in and help staff hospitals in need of help. As you can see, people will remain out here picketing. I've asked them how long they'll stay. They're prepared to stay as long as they need to. And with every horn that honks in support of them, the cheers all morning long. We're live.
Hey, let's give it up for the nurses. It's been a while since we dropped the beat, so I think we're going to have to drop the beat. Let's give it up for the nurses. Hey. Drop the beat. Dance with me. Dance with me. Drop the beat. In the street. Woo! When the nurses unite, there's nothing they can't fight. I'm just coming up with things. I don't know. I would have been out there hyping them up. That's all I got to say. I'd have been like, go nurses. Eric told me there's one that I need to look at from Miranda. Thank you. Sabby Sabs nurse here. I started getting texts 2 weeks ago asking me to work as a strike replacement. offering $10,000 a week minimum. Isn't that insane? Sometimes they'll be willing to pay them more than the people who have permanent jobs there, right? They're like, well, we ain't really got to do no benefits. Just come in and break these strikes. Now, I don't know if everyone remembers this, but about a year or so ago, I covered this story that happened right in Boston about the nurses. There was a nurse who was so exhausted from work that they drove off the top of the garage floor at the hospital. Quick reminder here. This is what I was talking about.
The local nurse drives off the roof of the hospital parking garage, crashing her car. She was badly hurt.
And tonight, local nurses say it's a prime example of exhausted frontline healthcare workers putting their own lives at risk after too many hours on the job. The story came to us as a tip. Boston 25 News reporter Jim Morelli got answers from the hospital in Jamaica Plain.
I really sympathize with the nurse, and I can certainly understand how it happened.
Nurses say what happened is a dramatic example of the effects of fatigue in healthcare workers. A spokesman for the Massachusetts Nurses Association confirms that a nurse did drive off the roof of the Brigham and Women's Faulkner parking garage. Boston police say they responded to Faulkner early the morning of May 17th and found a heavily damaged vehicle, part of the garage guardrail missing, and a driver with significant injuries, including broken bones. Mass General Brigham says they're investigating the incident. A source tells Boston 25 News it happened when an exhausted on-call nurse fell asleep with her car in reverse.
I don't think people realize how exhausting this job is.
Registered nurse Rebecca First retired from Newton Wellesley Hospital a few years ago after a 40-year career. She says the public underestimates the emotional and physical toll on nurses, moving heavy patients, the stress of life-saving procedures, and coping with death.
I mean, I have driven home from working nights with the window open, slapping my face to keep myself awake.
Nurses make up the largest portion of the healthcare team, but studies make clear that stress, fatigue, and lack of adequate staffing are having an impact on those numbers. The American College of Nursing recently reported that a quarter of registered nurses plan to leave the profession, one way or another, in the next 5 years.
It was a 22-mile drive for me when I worked, and I was exhausted. And you don't want to get into an accident. There's got to be a different way. There's got to be a different way.
In Jamaica Plain, Jim Morelli.
Yeah. And look what it is. Again, Brigham and Women's, that was one of the ones that I was talking about. So that's what I have heard also from my friends, that it's an exhausting job and it can be very stressful. So imagine that, right? Like driving from home at work at night and you're rolling down the window so that you can get the air on your face so you don't fall asleep while you're driving. Yeah. So kudos to the nurses for standing up to what they were promised. And again, freedom is not free. So they're on strike. They're not getting paid. So they're losing money, but they're like, hey, you guys owe us. You promised us this. And now you're not going through with it. So, you guys know me. I support the workers. I support the nurses, and let's cheer them on. And I'm greatly concerned about what is going to come of that profession as well as we continue to enter into this period of artificial intelligence. Bill Gates made a statement not too long ago where he said that in the next 10 years that doctors and nurses will also be replaced by AI, right? So people need to demand what they can get now while they can get it. Hey guys, this was a Sabby clip. If you like what you saw, hit that like button and subscribe.